Good afternoon. I'm California State Treasurer Fiona Ma, and I would like to welcome you to this CalABLE webinar. As State Treasurer, I believe that CalABLE is an excellent financial tool for Californians with disabilities. For the first time, eligible individuals on means-tested benefit programs can save up to $100,000 without having their benefits impacted. CalABLE is a game changer, providing people with disabilities a low-cost, tax-advantaged way to save and invest for a better financial future. I am committed to promoting this program and for doing all that I can to continue to help people with disabilities strengthen their financial position to achieve a better life experience. Thank you for joining us today and for your continued support of the CalABLE program. I will turn things over to the CalABLE team to begin today's webinar. Good
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. Quite a few people on the line right now. My name is Thomas Martin. I'm the Executive Director of CalABLE. I have brown hair and blue button-up shirt and a darker blue shirt underneath. My camera is working. So thank you for joining us. So I know this is as Maria mentioned at the top. This is a very popular topic. It's something that's, we always get, not only do we always get questions about, we also ask each other questions about it as well to kind of work through, what we think qualifies or doesn't qualify as a qualified disability expense. It's a very long-term qualified disability expense, but it sounds more imposing and difficult than it actually is. So I think as we go along, I think you'll see there's a lot of flexibility in how that term is used and what kind of things it can cover. So we'll talk about the program overall, how CalABLE works, but we'll talk about what these expenses are, how you can make purchases, or what kind of things you can purchase with the account, how you go about doing that. We'll also talk a little bit about what kind of things don't qualify as qualified disability expenses. But again, you'll see that is a much smaller list of things than the list of things that do qualify. Yeah, so a bit about me. So I'm autistic. So are both of my kids. And I have a CalABLE account for myself that I'm using kind of for long-term savings, and we'll be talking about some of those things later on. I also have each of my kids has their own CalABLE account, using that to save to help grow a nest egg for when they're adults. So they can also use their account on these various qualified disability expenses. So with that, I think we can go and get started. First thing you want to do is I'll hand it back over to Maria to go over a few polls, and then we'll start getting into some of the basics. So, Maria?
Thank you. Yes, so we always want to know who is joining us today for this webinar. So I'm going to launch a poll. There it is. So please, if you could answer this question, we will share the results shortly. So are you an account owner, an authorized legal representative, or a parent, state employee, a service provider, maybe a potential CalABLE participant? And then we have other as an option. Give her a couple seconds. Now we'll share the results. Thanks for participating. Let's take a look at the results right now. It seems like we have a big portion of our participants today are authorized legal representatives or parents. And with the second most voted was account owner. So welcome to this webinar. Thank you for being here. Now, our second question, we're curious to know if this is your first time with that CalABLE webinar. And the question is, have you attended to one of our webinars before? Okay, so it's half and half. So 50% of you are first timers. Welcome to your first CalABLE webinar. And for those of you who have attended before, thank you for being here. Yes, so those are the results for our questions today.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that was almost exactly an even split. So that's good. So I think what's going to be helpful about this webinar, so I'll be talking about some of the more basic things, which we'll get into in a bit, to make sure everyone has a good understanding of what the program does, how it works. But everyone's going to also benefit from the more detailed discussion of qualified disability expenses that we'll get into in a bit. So with that, let's go ahead and get started on the basics. So what is CalABLE? So CalABLE is a tax-advantaged savings and investment program. It's for people with disabilities. We'll get into eligibility in just a moment, but it's designed to help them be able to save, plan for the future, but to still be able to spend on their either major expenses or day-to-day expenses, whatever that might be. This is so CalABLE. This is a state program, but this is an extension of the federal ABLE Act. ABLE stands for Achieving Better Life Experience. That's where ABLE comes from, in case you're wondering. And so this is something that's both in state and federal law. It's designed to help people, again, be able to save money, be able to spend that money, and in doing so, protect their benefits, their other benefits they may have, which we will get into in just a moment. So before that, let's talk about eligibility, just so everyone's clear on who can have a CalABLE account. So who is eligible for CalABLE? So in order to have a CalABLE account, you must have a disability that started before the age of 26. So that's so it doesn't matter how old you are today, just matters when the disability started. So I'm older than 26, but I can still have a CalABLE account because my disability started at birth. And what's exciting is that's actually going to increase next year. So that anyone with a disability that starts before the age of 46 will be able to have an account rather than just 26. So very excited about that. That's going to be a huge increase in the number of people that we can serve and support. So you have to have a disability that starts before the age of 26. As for the disability itself, it has to meet one of two criteria. So one, it has to be a disability. You'd have to be eligible for a disability benefit like supplemental security income, that's SSI, or Social Security Disability Insurance, that's SSDI. So if you are eligible for one of those and your disability started before the age of 26, then you already know that you're going to be eligible. However, some people like me, I don't receive SSI or SSDI. I can still self-certify because my disability is listed by the Social Security Administration. They have the list of compassionate allowances. They also have something called the Blue Book, or it's their listing of impairments. Both of those lists they're on their website. It's also on our website. So we can point you to it if you go to our website. We have an eligibility page that'll walk you through it. But if your disability is on there, then you know you're eligible. So I can just look up autism. I just do a word search. I can find it in the Blue Book. Now we do recommend a letter from a physician stating that you have an eligible disability if you are self-certifying. It's not something that you would give to us. We don't get it. We don't want it. But we do recommend it just for your record keeping purposes. We have a link in the chat. It's also on our website to a form that your physician can fill out to make it a little bit easier for them to for you to get that signed letter. But it doesn't have to be on that form. My doctor took a look at the form and then just wrote their own letter, and that's fine too. So that's how you know you're eligible. You have to have disability that starts before 26, and you have to meet one of those. The disability has to meet one of those two criteria. Okay, now I mentioned before about how CalABLE can help protect eligibility for benefits. So we're going to be talking a bit about that, so everyone knows what I'm referring to. So the biggest one to think about, which is one that we'll start with, is SSI. This is the one that we get the most questions about. This is the most common one, I think, for our account holders. A little more than half of our account holders receive SSI. Um, and so ordinarily, in order to receive SSI payments, ordinarily you can't have more than $2,000 to your name. It's a very strict rule, and it's an extremely limiting rule. It makes it harder for someone with a disability to save for the future, to be more independent, to not be as reliant on someone else to house them or support them or something like that. And so for me, this is important because as I mentioned at the beginning, both of my kids, they both have CalABLE accounts, and I'm saving a nest egg for them for when they're adults. And the reason that I'm using a CalABLE account is because otherwise, if I had any money saved up for them, they would not be eligible for benefits when they need it when they're adults. So I want to make sure they get their SSI. They can get SSI payments if that's something they'll need to support themselves. And the only way to do that and save money is by having a CalABLE account. So with this, it would make it easier for them to have major expenses, to get an apartment, or to do anything else that I would want them to be able to do to be as independent as they can be. So, so a bit of information about how that works with SSI. So again, you can have more than $2,000 and still keep your SSI benefits. With a CalABLE account, you can have up to $100,000 instead of two. Any contributions into the account, that's not considered income, and neither are distributions from the account. Now, if you have income from other sources, if you're working, for example, that income that still counts as income. It's just that if you add it to your CalABLE account, it's not going to count again as income or something like that. It's just anything you add into the account is an income. Where the part where this is helpful in particular is if someone is contributing to your CalABLE account. So if someone adds money to someone's CalABLE account, a friend, family member, whoever, that is not considered income in the eyes of the Social Security Administration. So it doesn't count against your income for SSI benefits. And again, distributions, meaning when you take money out of the account, that doesn't count as income either. You would need to be able to use it for qualified expenses, which we'll be discussing in a bit later. And in particular, if you're using it for any housing related expenses, if you are receiving SSI, you have to make sure you spend it in the same money you withdraw it for housing expenses. We'll talk more about that in a bit. That is just one unusual nuance that's specific to someone who receives SSI and specific to their housing expenses. So, but again, we'll get back to that in a bit. But on the screen here and also on our website, you can see the link to the Program Operations Manual system that the Social Security Administration uses. So if I say POMS, I usually just say their manual, but if I say POMS on accident, that's what I'm referring to. It's their internal manual. Okay, and then so that's the connection with SSI specifically. We have a lot of account holders who receive SSDI. SSDI does not have an asset limit, so that part doesn't apply. However, what's still the case with SSDI and all the other benefits that they're on the screen, I'll talk about in a bit, is that any contributions into the CalABLE account don't count as income. So again, if a friend or family member adds something to your CalABLE account, that's not going to count against you as income for the purposes of determining whether you're eligible for benefits. So it's just another nice protection to have in place. And then so Medi-Cal used to have an asset limit, meaning how much money you could have at a time. That's no longer the case. So that just simply doesn't apply at all. But again, CalABLE still helps for any income assessment. There's another significant benefit for Medi-Cal too, related to estate recovery. The link that's on the screen and it's on our website as well. You can also take a look at that there. There's a bit more detail. For HUD, that's the U.S. Housing and Urban Development Department, I believe it's called, for HUD, and specific for Section 8 housing under HUD. CalABLE accounts are again excluded when determining eligibility. So the assets in the account are not counted against you. And again, same thing with CalFresh. Anyone receiving CalFresh food benefits, again, the CalABLE account is not counted against your benefit eligibility. So one thing that we'll keep in mind is that they want you to keep in mind is that we are CalABLE. We don't run these other programs. So this is all guidance that we've received from them. This is all based on what's in state and federal law. But if you have more specific questions, you'll want to contact them directly to make sure you understand where the interplay is with your CalABLE account. You'll want to keep in mind any asset limits for those programs. For example, SSI, you still have to be below $100,000 in your CalABLE account to be eligible for SSI. Again, there's links that are in the slide here. The links are also on our website. You can get a little bit more detail on each of these programs. One thing you just want to keep in mind, these are all resources that we either point to or receive from other agencies. So if there's a mention of annual contribution limits, that might be outdated. So you'll want to refer to our own annual contribution limits, which we will get into right now. So how much can you add to a CalABLE account? So I already mentioned $100,000. So if you're receiving SSI benefits, you can have up to $100,000 total in your CalABLE account. Now there's a couple other numbers to keep in mind though. So one is your annual cap. So you can add up to $19,000 in this calendar year. That changes each year. Last year was 18,000. This year it's 19,000. So meaning that you're not going to get to $100,000 in 1 year, but over multiple years, if you're constantly adding more to the account, you can add up to $19,000 this year. You can get up to $100,000 total over multiple years. Additionally, so if you're not receiving SSI benefits, you can actually save beyond 100,000, up to 529,000. And you wouldn't be able to save more than that. We simply wouldn't let you try to add more. So those are the numbers to keep in mind. So $19,000 per year you can add, $100,000 total if you receive SSI, $529,000 total if you're not receiving or not trying to protect benefits. Okay, and then as far as the money that's in the accounts, we have a range of professionally managed investment portfolios. We have 8 different portfolios you can choose from. They offer the opportunity for tax-free growth as long as you're using your account for those qualified expenses. Then any earnings on the account are all tax-free, which just makes it a really great vehicle for long-term savings. And then when you consider compound earnings over multiple years, you can really grow your assets depending on market performance. So we have more information on our website on this. This is more just to let folks know kind of how this works. If you want to get more information, you can go to our website. If you go to the next slide. So on our website, you can look at investment options. At the top, you can look at eligibility. There's also a handful of links that Madeline helpfully put in the chat. And for anyone who doesn't have an account, that's where you go to open the account. Again, it's calable.ca.gov. You click on open an account, and you jump right in, and it's not too bad. It takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes, somewhere around there, to open up an account. It's not terribly different from opening like a bank account or something like that. Same kind of information for the most part. Not too bad, and you get started saving right away. So that's kind of that's the overview of CalABLE. So let's talk about qualified disability expenses. And that's probably what the half of you who are here who have never been to a CalABLE presentation before, probably what a lot of you are looking to learn more about. So again, qualified disability expense. That's the technical term. I didn't choose it. It sounds maybe scarier than it actually is, or more complicated than it actually is. But it's really not too complicated. So this is what you'd want to think about. A qualified disability expense is an expense for the benefit of the person with a disability that would maintain or improve their health, independence, or quality of life. Those are the three things you want to keep in mind. So think about whose account it is, right? So if it's my own account, it needs to be benefiting me. For my kids, each of my kids have their account, it needs to be benefiting them. And so if I want to know if something's going to be a qualified expense, qualified disability expense, I just think of those three things. Well, is it benefiting their health, their independence, or their quality of life? That's how you want to think about it. So I'll get into more examples and a little bit more detail on that in just a moment. But first, we wanted to let me turn it over to Maria to go over a few more polls to discuss the qualified disability expenses. So Maria?
Yes, so we also have prepared a few little quizzes for today's presentation for you. Our first question is, I'm gonna launch it right now, is could a monthly bus pass be considered a qualified disability expense? We will give you a few seconds to vote. Okay, so most people responded correctly. The answer is yes. A monthly bus pass can definitely be considered a qualified disability expense. Transportation is one of the approved categories that is considered a QDE. Also, this is a good way to improve your independence. So you were correct. 96% of the audience voted likely yes. Here we go. Sorry about that. This is a fun question. Could a vacation to Disney World be considered a qualified disability expense? So let's see. Okay, we have a sort of a mix of answers here. The majority of you, 66% said likely yes, 24% said likely no, and some of you said you're not sure. So for those of you who said likely yes, you are correct. This is the correct answer. A vacation or a trip can help you, reduce stress and also support your mental health. So then it is considered a qualified disability expense. If you ever find yourself unsure of whether a trip or a vacation is or not a qualified disability expense, always refer to that definition, to that qualified disability expense definition. Does this improve my health, my independence, my quality of life? If the answer to those questions is yes, then it is more likely to be considered a qualified disability expense. And it can support your mental health and also create, if you go on vacation, it can create meaningful experiences for you. All right, we have Is there anything else you want to add, Thomas? I guess, I'm sorry, I guess we always get the question to whether CalABLE funds can be used to pay for caregiver expenses, right? Maybe you need someone to go on this vacation with you. So, yes, CalABLE funds can be used to pay for caregiver expenses as long as, the expenses are related to the beneficiary. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, so like for example, we had one of our account holders took a trip to, I think took a cruise to Alaska, if I remember right. And use his CalABLE account to pay for himself to travel, but also use his CalABLE account to pay for a family member to travel with him in order to have that extra support um, because he would not have been able to go on his own. So therefore, it is benefiting him, and that's really the question to keep in mind. Is it benefiting the person with the disability?
Thank you. All right, we have a couple more. Another great question here. I'll give you a few seconds to vote. Could lunch with friends be considered a qualified disability expense? All right. Okay, it seems like the majority of you said likely yes. And again, this is the correct answer. You could go out and have lunch with your friends, and that could be considered a qualified disability expense. One thing that I want to point out, for example, you could not buy lunch for your friend, unfortunately. You can pay lunch for yourself if you're going out and hang out with your friends, or you go to the movie theater. You could pay for those things for yourself. And honestly, this is also a great opportunity to request a prepaid card, so you can go out and have more independence with the prepaid card when you go out with your friends. Okay, we have a couple more. Let's see. Could the down payment for a car in the name of the account owner's parents be a qualified disability expense? All right. Okay, interesting. There is a mix here. A lot of you said likely no. For those of you who answered yes, you are correct. Some of you are not sure, but the correct answer is yes. A qualified disability expense must primarily benefit the CalABLE account beneficiary. So if the car is used, for example, to transport the beneficiary, then yes, it would likely be considered a qualified disability expense. With this example, we can see and learn that, as long as the expense benefits and clearly serves the beneficiary's needs, it can be considered a qualified disability expense. We have account holders who have purchased a vehicle before to transfer, let's say, their child's wheelchair, for example. So likely yes, it is considered a qualified disability expense. Anything to add, Thomas?
Nope. Yeah, same thing. Who is going to benefit? That's what you want to keep in mind. If it's going to benefit the person with the disability, then you can use their CalABLE funds in order to fund it.
All right. And I believe we have a last question here. It is, we would like to know, what are you saving for? You're saving for your first home, education, vacation, now that you know that it's a qualified disability expense. You need a vehicle, technology, health and wellness. Okay, it seems like a lot of you are saving for health and wellness. but this is surprising. 26% of you voted uh, uh, to be able to purchase a house. So this is a great goal. And then the rest of you, are saving for education, for an accessible vehicle and technology and equipment. So we'd like to hear from you. We want you to be able to save for those goals. Especially for those who want to get a first a house. So that's a good one. Thank you so much for participating today. Thomas?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so that was the goal of the polls is really to kind of give you some very specific scenarios to think about and then talk about why it does not apply. And also just kind of get a sense for where people are at. So again, what is the rule? It needs to benefit the person with the disability's health, independence, or quality of life. So, we gave a bunch of examples for different scenarios where, maybe can, maybe can't. Really just kind of depends who it's benefiting, right? So we have an account holder who purchased a wheelchair accessible vehicle for her child. Her child wasn't going to drive it, but that's okay because it was for the benefit of her child. She wouldn't have bought a wheelchair accessible vehicle if not for her child's disability. So that's how you want to think about those kind of things. So what are some categories of things that likely apply? So one thing we'll want to keep in mind is that CalABLE, we don't determine we don't make the determination for what is and isn't a qualified disability expense. We're sharing what the either what the law says or what the interpretations that we've heard from, but ultimately it's up to IRS, for example, because there's tax implications for these benefits. So but so what are some categories that are going to be very likely to be eligible as qualified disability expenses? So you see on the screen here, there's a bunch of different options. There's education, housing, transportation, travel, vocational training, basic needs like food, so grocery store or restaurants, recreation and entertainment, and we mentioned Disney World. That would be an eligible expense, most likely because it benefits quality of life, right? Healthcare related costs, assistive technology, a broad range of things likely qualify because it is meant to be broad. It is meant to be usable for the account holder. A lot of our account holders, because if you don't have a CalABLE account, you effectively can't save any realistic amount of money and still receive SSI. So a lot of our account holders, this is their only account. A lot of them, this is their very first financial account of any kind. And they can use this, but they can still use the account to pay for, pretty much everything they need because it's designed to be flexible. So so that's those are some categories for what will qualify. So let's talk about withdrawing. So taking money out for qualified disability expenses. So as I mentioned before, it's tax free. The earnings of the account are tax free, but also what you withdraw is tax free. It's not considered income. It's also penalty free. So CalABLE works similar to some retirement savings plans or some things like that, in that there's a tax benefit, there's investment options, you can save for the long term. But one huge benefit that CalABLE has that other programs might not have is that there aren't any penalties for withdrawing. So I use it for long-term savings. I use it as kind of like a secondary retirement account or something. And I can but I what makes it helpful and flexible is that I can still withdraw the money whenever I need it. I don't have to wait for some amount of time or something like that. And it's also not counted as a resource. So if anyone's receiving benefits, for example, SSI, when you withdraw the money, it does not count as a resource, as income, except for housing that we'll get into in just a moment. I'll explain how that works. So before that, we'll give you a specific scenario. This comes from the PALMS, which again is the Social Security Administration's internal manuals. This is their rules. This is an example of changing the intent of the use of a distribution. So in June, Jennifer takes a $7,000 distribution from her account to pay for an educational expense. That's a qualified disability expense, and that's okay. Their expense is due in September. In August, she gets a job offer and decides not to return to school. So she withdrew the money to spend it on school, but then she decides not to go to school. At this point, the $7,000 she withdrew, that is a countable resource for the Social Security Administration. So it's a countable resource in September because she no longer plans to use it for education. However, if she then uses it for some other qualified disability expense, if she redesignates it, or she puts the money back into her CalABLE account, then it would be okay. So it would still be protected. It wouldn't count as a resource. So, if she pulled it out to pay for education, and then instead she decided not to go to school, she's going to go work, but she needs a car. She redirected the money to purchase a car. That would be okay. That wouldn't count as that would count as a qualified expense. It just wouldn't count if she didn't spend it on something else that was a qualified expense, or if she didn't return the funds to her account. Now, I mentioned already about housing. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. And again, this is specific to SSI recipients. So anyone's not receiving SSI, you don't have to be concerned about this slide. But something to keep in mind. So again, whatever you have in your ABLE account is excluded from your SSI benefit eligibility calculation. So the assets you have normally can only have 2,000. With CalABLE, you can have up to 100,000. So that's excluded from that test. Anything you have contributed into the account, that's also not considered income. So meaning if someone gives you money, if you get a gift in your account from a friend or family member, that's not considered income. And again, when you withdraw from the account, that's also not considered income. But except, with the regular income that you receive, that's still going to count as income, meaning money you get from a job, that's still income, just not what you put in or withdraw from the account specifically. But what you want to keep in mind specifically for SSI, the money that you withdraw for housing expenses has to be paid in the same month for those housing expenses. So if you withdraw money on, today, April 16th, and you're going to use that to pay for housing, you have to use that money between now and April 30th. You couldn't carry it over into the next month. Otherwise, that may be counted as income because it wasn't used for housing in that month. So I know that gets a little complicated. Unfortunately, that's Social Security Administration's rules. But let's talk a bit about what counts as a housing expense. So on the screen here is a bunch of examples. So mortgage, and which includes property insurance requirements for in order to have the mortgage, property taxes, rent, gas, utilities, electricity. Those are all housing expenses that, as long as it's for the person with disability, that would be an appropriate use of CalABLE account. Those are all qualified disability expenses. But again, if you're receiving SSI benefits, you need to make sure you pay for it the same month that you withdraw it, or else Social Security may count that as income against you, and you don't want to jeopardize your eligibility for benefits. So remember, you got to pay for it the same month that you withdraw it. However, there's for things that are not housing related. Um, so any of the other expenses, vehicle payment, something like that, those don't have to be spent within the same month. And specific example, food is a basic living expense. That's not counted as a housing expense. You don't have to be worried about, if you withdraw money on the 30th to go, um, uh, um, uh, I don't know, to go pay for food at the grocery store, that's going to be okay. Okay, so let's do an example. Again, specifically for someone receiving SSI. I apologize that we spend a lot of time on this, but this is something we get a lot of questions about. So for anyone receiving SSI, it's very important to understand how this works. So this is an example from the Social Security Administration from their manual. Amy takes a distribution of $500 from her ABLE account in May to pay a housing expense for June. She deposits it into her checking account in May, withdraws it in June 3rd, and gives it to her landlord. This distribution is a housing expense and part of her checking account balance as of June 1, which makes it a countable resource for the month of June. So again, then in this case, it may count against her as a resource for the purposes of SSI. So again, what would have been better is if she had withdrew the money in May and then simply paid by the end of May, or she withdrew the money in June and paid in June. You just want to make sure it's within the same month if you're receiving SSI. If you're not receiving SSI, then you don't have to worry about any of this. This simply wouldn't apply to you. Okay, so thank you for bearing with that. I know that's a long explanation, but again, it's something that we get a lot of questions about. It's a very complicated subject. So the other thing that we get a lot of questions about, which is actually a harder question to answer in some ways, what is not a qualified disability expense? What is a non-qualified disability expense? So remember the test is, does it improve their health, independence, or quality of life? This is the opposite. So something is not a qualified expense. The way you know is because it's not benefiting their health, independence, or quality of life. But again, that is so broad. That is meant to be very broad. Quality of life is very, very broad. In particular, that there's not a lot of things that don't count as a qualified expense, but are still for the beneficiary. So let's talk about that really quick. So what examples of things that are not qualified expenses? On the slide here, there are 3 examples. The previous slides, we had 10 examples, we had 20 examples, whatever. We only have really 3 examples of things that are not qualified expenses that we could come up with, and we're constantly scratching our heads to think of new things. So the 3 main categories to think about. 1, money that is used for someone else, just like a flat out gift for someone else. You wouldn't be able to use your CalABLE account to buy Legos or something for a nephew, for example. If it's not their ABLE account, you couldn't purchase a gift with that money. The example that Maria used about lunches earlier, that's an example. You can pay for your own lunch. You couldn't pay for someone else's lunch. You couldn't just buy them lunch, right? So gifts for other people, that's not benefiting the beneficiary, so therefore that's not a qualified expense. Anything illegal, I don't know why I have to say this, but please don't buy anything illegal with your CalABLE account. If you do, that's not a qualified expense. That could create some tax problems in addition to other legal problems. Don't do that. Just remember what took down Al Capone was tax issues. Don't run any issues with illegal purchases with your tax protected benefits. And then gambling. Gambling is another example that's specifically stated as something you couldn't use it. Even if you're the person with disability, you can't gamble with money that you withdrew out of the ABLE account. Otherwise, that wouldn't count as a qualified expense. And then, one thing I'll mention under legal purchases, just something to keep in mind, this is illegal based on the federal definition. So CalABLE money can't be used on marijuana, for example, even though it's legal in California, not by federal law, so you wouldn't be able to use it for that. So if you did use it, so you can use the money for non-qualified expenses, hopefully not something illegal. Um, uh, However, if you were to do that, then it is no longer basically protected. So there would be tax penalties, um, income tax to consider. Um, there would be potential penalties for spending the money on a non-qualified expense. So while you can do that, you don't get all the benefits of the CalABLE account. So something to keep in mind. But again, the categories are so broad that it's kind of hard to not use it for qualified expenses. Okay. And last thing. So what if you're unsure? What if you're not sure if it's a qualified expense? Um, uh, Same thing I mentioned before. You just want to keep in mind what are the three categories, the three things to think about: health, independence, or quality of life. As long as it's meeting one of those categories and it's for the person with a disability, it's probably going to be an eligible expense. If you have a question, you can reach out to us. You would just want to keep in mind that we do not decide if something is an eligible expense. However, we can give you our best, our best interpretation. But health, independence, quality of life, just keep in mind those three things. Okay, so with that, I would like to introduce a special guest. So we have one of our ambassadors on the line. Jennifer, are you able to pop on?
All right, greetings there. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? So yeah, we'll have we'll hear a bit from Jennifer about how she's her account, and let me also introduce Anne. Anne is the Deputy Executive Director for CalABLE. So I will hand it over to you two.
Thank you, Thomas. Just for everybody on the, I am
Okay. Okay. I guess the signal must have dropped.
You're there, Jennifer. I'm
Okay.
describing myself for viewers today. So I'm a middle-aged female with brown hair and glasses, and I'm wearing a blue shirt. So Jennifer, if you want to just quickly describe yourself, people like to know who we are.
In my case, I am Jennifer, 36 years old, Los Angeles, always with a fedora because no person should walk around without hats. Favorite color, lavender. Golden Girls, favorite TV show. Everything must be color coordinated. Phone colors are dark purple. Lavender on the purse to match the hat, shoes, and a couple of suits. But, nobody knows that purple is my favorite color. But that is to describe myself from there. As it pertains to being a CalABLE account holder, I had already heard in doing a lot of research for federal funding that a federal ABLE account was in the process of being created and then passed through for approval. Well, then I didn't hear anything else for a number of years. In 2017, I was the victim of a very unfortunate situation, and I was therefore paid a small settlement, nothing fancy. So this is where one of the attorneys, as we signed off on the final documents, mentioned, well, maybe you can consider looking into a specialized savings like CalABLE. To which I said, CalABLE as in the federal ABLE account that they were talking about 2014, 2016, it's actually active. And the attorney said, yes, do you want one? And I said, hell yeah. Went right home, jumped in and created the CalABLE account. And so that when settlement came through, I looked at the annual max I could put it in. I've been with CalABLE ever since, which is a godsend because I have multiple health conditions. that over time have taken away, I'm sorry about that, my capability to walk independently without assistance, organ dysfunction, all of these things, you know, while you're trying to build a life for yourself young and your health goes out from you young. And that's just a roll of the dice. So ever since then, becoming an account holder, I started talking to other friends and relatives of mine at that point who also had their conditions show up at young ages under the age of 26. I think a couple of them became account holders, a couple of them didn't, but that to me makes no difference because all I want to do is try to get the word out there to help other folks who are in situations like me where it's completely out of their control. I can't afford to lose either my SSI or my Medi-Cal benefits because I'm now at the point where if I don't have my Medi-Cal, it will be life and death. So CalABLE is a great protector of that because I do need my heart and kidneys to continue to be functional. With it, that allowed me, especially after that situation, the clothes I was wearing that day, clothes that looked similar to it, I was so traumatized, I threw everything out, bought new clothes, I relocated. I was able to get furniture and other equipment that the insurance wasn't paying for, which is how I have my handy dandy rollator walker. I've got the chance to take, ever since I was 5 years old, I'd always dreamed of going to Montreal. And with that, I was able to take off for 6 days to Montreal with my poor French that I've been trying to learn for 6 years. And I had the absolutely most beautiful time. If I had known I was going to enjoy it that much, I would have CalABLE to stay. All of these things to say, when you've already gone through struggles, when things are already difficult out here, we already don't know if one day one benefit we get medical insurance for or with now may not be available tomorrow. You have to be able to have a nest egg. And that's where a lot of, for myself and other participants who also can't afford to lose or Medi-Cal or the Medicaid system entirely. It's great to know that you can have more than $2,000. Everybody can see it, but they can't touch it and they can't use it against you, which I think is a fair turnaround for everybody else. Give this, give this. Well, now we have something you can't touch. Fair's fair. So I encourage as many people as I can to consider the notion of CalABLE. You can at least have clothes, you can have food in your stomach, furniture, or other needs for you. My next big goal is I need another car. I haven't had a car in years, and now with the mobility issue, it is starting to become, I can function my legs fine. Walking for extended periods of time isn't always the easiest, especially going to and from doctor's appointments. So I'm aiming for a car. And at some point in the future, my dream has always been to buy myself a 3-acre place, comfortable ranch style, garden in the back, organic, couple of dogs, For me, nothing fancy, but the fact that that's money that can be saved up to get the type of home that is not what you see in the city. Even though I'm born and raised in the city, I'm a small town kind of person. That's just the way my family is. How else with JUNA and Medicaid, how else would you be able to have that and then be made to be punished even more just for being ill, but for having a little bit of resources that doesn't account for much in today's economy? But that is me and my life and my thoughts in a nutshell. So I did notice for the polls that there are a lot of authorized representatives of beneficiaries that will be eligible for CalABLE. I think that would make life for all of you who are authorized representatives of the beneficiaries. It won't take away all of the burden, but it will help considerably because there's something everybody, whether or not there's health conditions, there are certain things you've got to have. So I would highly recommend, especially for those taking care of eligible beneficiaries, look into it and consider it, because there's really not very many other options, nor good options. But that's just my life, my thought, my experiences. So that is Jennifer Obakume in a nutshell.
Jennifer, you answered all the questions I was going to ask you, and I do really appreciate your time. I really love that you're one of our ambassadors. You tell the story so much better than I do. I do know Thomas has a little more material he wants to cover, but we're so appreciative that you were here. And Thomas, I'm going to turn this back to you.
Thank you. Yeah, Jennifer, thank you for joining us. I know, I think it's really helpful for, to give a bit of context for everyone for what, how people are actually using CalABLE accounts. For those who don't have a CalABLE account, you can hear kind of what Jennifer is using it for, how she came across it, what the kind of benefits that it provides, and that's what we're here for. So yeah, thank you, Jennifer. So I'll, just a few things, and then we'll try to have some time for Q&A and any questions for Jennifer too. We might have some questions for her. Yeah, so what we've talked about to this point has mainly been what you can use the account for. So I do want to touch very quickly on how to use the account and making withdrawals. So let's talk about the different ways to access your money. So these are on the screen. These are the four main ways to do it. You can do an electronic withdrawal, meaning you can withdraw money from one account to another account. So I could take money out of my CalABLE account and put it into my credit union account, for example. We have a prepaid card. Should have thought to grab it, but I have one. We have a prepaid card. You can put money on the card. If you decide I want to put $300 from my CalABLE account onto my card, you can do it that way. I'll talk a bit more about that in just a moment. You can have a check mailed to you. This way is a little bit longer, but I know sometimes you really just need a physical check. So if you need a check, you can request one, and one will be mailed to you, made out to whoever you need it to be mailed out to, and you can pay by check. You can also do monthly withdrawals. So if you want to withdraw, $200 or whatever from your CalABLE account every month, so you can pay for XYZ, whatever it might be, you can do that too. You can make it a recurring thing. So let's talk about the prepaid card very quickly. So I mentioned this a second ago. So you can get a prepaid card attached to your CalABLE account. You decide how much money you want to add to the card. So I can add $100, $500, whatever it might be. And then I can use that wherever I need to go use it. So it is a Visa card. You can use it wherever you use a Visa card. So, you know, you can use the grocery store, you can use the restaurant, wherever it might be, as long as they would take a Visa card, then you can probably use it there. Something to keep in mind from Social Security. Money that you put on the card, there's just clarification, money that you put on the card, that is still protected CalABLE money. So that doesn't count as an asset. You don't have to worry about, you know, whether or not that counts against you as income or anything like that. The money on the card is still kind of protected as part of your CalABLE money. Now, one thing that's helpful, so I saw that there's a lot of, I know that you know, a lot of our people on the line right now are parents or authorized legal representatives, conservators, guardians, whatever it might be. One thing that's great about this is that you can get a card for yourself and for the person that you are supporting. So this is something I'm looking forward to. I'll probably be getting a card for my oldest son, you know, this year and next year, to help to help just kind of help him learn financial literacy, but also B, just to make him a little bit more independent so that he could pay for things with his own card, with his own name. But I could still put controls on it. So for example, you know, where it might work or how much money I want on the card, those sorts of things. So something that would make it a lot easier, a lot more helpful for people who are supporting the person with disability, while still maximizing that person's independence. Right now we are covering all the monthly fees for the card to make sure it's as usable as it can be. We want to make sure it's accessible. Okay. So I also want to show you what that looks like in the portal. So in your actual CalABLE account portal, if you go in there, this is what it looks like to make a withdrawal. So you request to make a withdrawal. It'll take you to this page. It's not too complicated. You can see there's two steps. So one, you select where the money's going. So either the prepaid card or bank account, that's an option. A check that would be mailed to you, and that'd be addressed to you and mailed to you. Or third, a check that would be they'd be made out to a bill pay recipient, so like a landlord or something like that. And if you need more than the limits that you see on the screen, if you need more than $25,000 to be transferred to another account, or by check, or if you need more than $5,000 to be paid to a bill pay recipient, we have a form for that. We can walk you through that. So there's a link right in the portal to get you to that. And then once you select how you want the money to be transferred, then you just go in and you just add in a bit more information. So in this example, this one said, I want the money to be transferred to another account. So you can see here it's transferred to, which bank account is it going to? You can see it says Chase. That means that someone has a separate Chase bank account that they're going to transfer money out of their CalABLE account into. And then you decide how much money you want to withdraw and where is it coming from. So in this case, they only have the FDIC insured portfolio, and they're opting to take $100 out of it and transfer it to their Chase account. So that's all it takes. You just click the one you want. You say how much money you want to withdraw. You click review, and you just go through the steps. So it is very easy. It's meant to be easy. Not hard at all to do. And then one thing you'll want to keep in mind is record keeping. So this is general recommendation that people should just do in general, but it's doubly true for a CalABLE account. You want to make sure you're keeping receipts, you store them securely. You can scan them, you can save them in some way it's easy to find. Whatever's going to make sense for you. If you have the prepaid card, you can actually upload photos of your receipts directly into that account too. So just another way to be able to keep track. And the reason why you should keep track, besides just generally it's a good practice, you'll want to be able to make sure that if for some reason you were ever audited or something by the IRS, for example, that you would be able to point to your expenses and say, yeah, these are all qualified expenses. Here's a bunch of receipts. So we recommend keeping those receipts, making any notes that might be relevant, and specifically for the IRS, they recommend keeping your records for 3 years from the date you filed your original return, or 2 years from the date you paid the tax. This is, again, the account has tax benefits, so this is why the IRS is involved. So we haven't heard of account holders being audited or anything like that, but it is something to be aware of and to plan for. And with that, that's the main part of our webinar. So a couple of reminders and things to keep in mind. So first of all, which is very exciting, this is news, and probably not a lot of people, if anyone here knows has heard this. So this just happened. We're very happy with our account portal is now in a total of 9 languages. So very exciting. So we have English, Spanish, French, Korean, Italian, Polish, Portuguese, Russian, and Chinese. So if you want to switch your portal to one of those languages, you just scroll down to the bottom of the page where you're logging in, or after you've already logged in. Scroll to the bottom. You can see the symbol on the screen here, but it's a little symbol that says English. You click on that and you can choose one of these other languages. So this is great for someone, if English isn't your first language, you can still go in and you can change it to French or whatever it might be, and use your account directly that way. Everything will be translated in there for you. And then to contact us, you can call our customer service center, 833-CalABLE, between 6 a.m. and 5 p.m. California time. If you have a hearing impairment, you can use the relay service. You just call using a relay service. If you need to speak to someone in a language besides English, it supports more than 240 languages. So give them a call and see if you can stump them with a language that they can't do. On the link on our website, sorry, on the slide is a link to a customer support page. You can also submit a query that way. We also have a QR code on the screen where you can sign up for emails and newsletters and all sorts of good information. And speaking of sources of good information, we have a range of social media accounts, YouTube and Facebook and everything else, that you can go to get more information about CalABLE, or see the cool stuff that we're doing, see the cool art that our account holders are submitting, all sorts of fun stuff. So please take a look. And then next month's webinar, this one is going to be focusing on basically helping make good adults, making successful adults. So CalABLE from childhood to adulthood, talking about how to use your CalABLE account to save for a child, some things to think about, what are those qualified expenses, but then also that transition to adulthood and what it likes to continue using the account as an adult. So it's kind of like a full lifespan of a CalABLE account holder. What are some things to keep in mind? We'll have some guest presenters who'll talk a bit about other programs besides CalABLE, and some of which will have a good interaction with CalABLE too. So definitely something that I think a lot of folks can benefit from. So join us next month. And then you'll be getting a survey after this. So please fill it out. Just let us know about the webinar. Let us know if you have any suggestions. If there are any questions we didn't answer, that's a good place to ask that. I can see our staff's going frantically through the chat to try to answer Q&A questions, but there are a lot this time. They're especially high numbered this time around. So we probably won't get to every question, but you can feel free to add it to a survey and we will get back to you that way. And then a couple of disclaimers, just to point out, I did mention that we have professionally managed portfolios, and any time that you invest in the market, that carries some level of risk. CalABLE's not unique in that regard. So something to keep in mind, to think about when you're investing, when you're considering stocks and bonds and securities. Okay, and then I think that is it. So with that, we have a few minutes for Q&A. I think it's Anne who's going to be asking any questions that popped up in the chat. That would be good to answer live. So Anne.
Well, there are lots of questions. As
All right.
mentioned, we are doing our best to answer these, but if you have a specific question that we don't answer, please put it in that survey. Thomas, there are a couple that I'm just going to read to you. My favorite one probably is yours. Does CalABLE offer an app?
CalABLE does have an app. We're hoping to get a CalABLE specific app soon, but that's for the future. But for now, yes, if you go to the App Store, it's on Android, it's on iOS. We have so Vestwell is our banking partner. They're the ones who work with us to kind of run the accounts. So if you search for Vestwell, Vestwell, you'll see it in your App Store. So it looks like this. Vestwell, you sign in. It's very convenient. It's quick to use. For me, it's a lot faster than going like on the website. I just log in, it scans my face, does whatever it does with that, and then it just opens it up for me. So yeah, really cool. Search for Vestwell in your App Store.
Another one, this might be a silly question, but can the card be added to Apple or Google Pay on my phone?
No, that is a wish list item though. That's something we'd like to find out about for the future. For now though, it is just a card. However, you can still use it online. So you can use it on Amazon or wherever, just like a regular Visa card, because it effectively is a regular Visa card.
Somebody, I know we're a little over tax time, but just info. How does it affect your 1099 QA having a CalABLE account? How is that reported?
Oh. So yeah, so the 1099 QA, that is the tax form that you get after the end of the year if you had any expenses. If you use the account to pay for something, then you'd have it. So like for me, I used my own account to pay for some things throughout last year. So I got a 1099 QA. I didn't get one for my kids because I was just saving in their account, so they didn't get a form. But that form, that you'd submit that with your taxes. It just indicates how much money you that you use your account, how much money you used. But again, the account is any earnings in the account are tax free as long as you use them for those qualified expenses. So you're really just reporting that they use the account, that there were and that there were earnings in the account.
Is there an IRS link to verify what they approve as a qualified expense?
I'm not sure if we have one. I don't know if you have anything. If the IRS has put out something, I know they have some guidance they put out. We're mainly pointing to like the laws. And again, that the health, independence, quality of life, that's a specific term that's used.
And I would just add, looking at the palms as well. We've talked about that. We provide that link as well. Those are just categories. They're not a one size fits all, but at least it's some guidance for people if you're trying to determine if that is an allowable expense. As Thomas mentioned earlier, it's very, very broad. We talk about gambling and anything illegal and gift giving. So as long as it's for the benefit of the account holder, it's pretty much an allowable expense.
Yeah, and there are there are misconceptions. I see there's one question in the chat about someone was told by their accountant that Disneyland tickets were not a qualified expense. Again, it is likely to be a qualified expense if it's a ticket for the person with a disability. That is benefiting the quality of life. That's the way to think about it. If they need someone to support them in order to be able to travel to Disneyland, in order to go, then it's likely gonna be a qualified expense to pay for that person as well. can't just be friends and family. It can't just be to bring someone. But if they need someone in order to go, then that's benefiting their quality of life.
And I would add to that, we had a lot of questions about going on vacation outside of the United States. And yes, that would be an allowable expense. Let's say you're going on and you need, you need your caregiver to assist you when you're on your cruise. Again, that's going to be an allowable expense. This one, I like this question. Can we make an appointment with the CalABLE representative? They want to know if we have offices here in California.
We have one tiny office with just a couple of staff. So we don't really do appointments quite like that. However, we do have our customer service center. Again, that number is 833 CalABLE. You can ask them any questions. They will help you out. You can also send us, you can also contact us. You can send us an email. Our email address is calable@treasurer.ca.gov. We'd be happy to, answer any questions, help you out that way.
Somebody wanted to know how they could set up a reoccurring deposit where they could put like $250 on their debit card every week. How would they do that, Thomas?
Okay, so yeah, so you'd let's see, now you're trying to remember exact steps to do it. So so if you go into the portal, there's the part that we showed earlier about let me try to find it real quick, about how to make the withdrawals. So you can find information in there about how to set up those transfers. Yeah, so I'm trying to load up on my phone, but it's not being cooperative, unfortunately.
That's our call. And somebody can help them walk it through as well.
But yeah, so you can look through there. That's where you'd make all the transfers in and out and using the prepaid card. That's part of it.
Okay. Why do purchases need to be qualified expenses? Do you have to submit expenses for approval for qualified expense? So do you have to have your qualified expenses pre-approved before you spend the money?
Okay, yeah, so that's a good question. So no. So we CalABLE, we don't police the account or something like that. You don't have to provide us, as general, you don't have to provide us with documentation for how you're using the account, for example. So we're mainly kind of relaying, these are the rules, this is what you'd want to keep in mind. So we don't require that documentation. You may, however, be asked for documentation, specifically from IRS. So again, you're not getting pre-approval or anything like that. If you determine that you want to use your account, you can go ahead and use your account. What we recommend is keeping records, keeping receipts, keeping notes to remind you of what you did, is another good practice. But keeping those on hand, because if you ever were audited by the IRS, then you'd want to have those materials ready. And that's CalABLE specific advice, but that's also general advice. If there's ever anything with some tax implication, you'd want to keep your records. You want to keep your W-2 and your pay stubs and all those things. If you're ever audited, you should make sure you can produce that kind of stuff.
Last question, we had quite a few of these in the chat, asking if you could use your CalABLE account for legal fees, maybe for advance directive for the beneficiary, or if you need to set up a special needs trust, or just a lot of different legal type fees. Can you use your CalABLE account for that?
Yeah, so yeah, any legal fees for the person with disability, again, who's it benefiting? It's benefiting them, if it's benefiting their estate, those kinds of things are those are appropriate expenses. So yeah, you could use it for something like an advanced directive or something along those lines. So it can't be for someone else. That's all you got to keep in mind. As long as it's for the person with a disability, then their legal expenses are likely going to be appropriate.
And the last one, Thomas, is that we got a comment from somebody that really enjoyed Jennifer's testimony. So thank you again, Jennifer, for being here. And Thomas, with that, I think we're ready to wrap this up.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. If you want to see more of Jennifer, we actually have a video on our YouTube channel. Jennifer is one of our 2022 CalABLE ambassadors. So she's been with us for a couple of years now, a couple of presentations and that sort of thing. So yeah, she's awesome. You can watch that video on our YouTube channel with a bit more about her. But again, thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate it. I know there was like a record number of questions probably. Oh, thank you. Madeline just added to the chat Jennifer's video. So if you want to watch Jennifer's video, go in the chat. You can see there's the link to our YouTube channel. But again, I know we always get a lot of questions about this, and this is probably the most questions I've seen on any subject, except for maybe special needs trusts. So, thank you for everyone for listening and hanging in there. Again, if you have any questions, you can call our customer service center. You can look on our website and get more information about what might count as a qualified expense. So, with that, thank you everyone for joining us, and yeah, have a good April.
Bye.